Hello again. I will readily confess that I'm not really a fan of Mark Rowley, the head of London's police. He strikes me as something of a weasel. Either he cannot control the men and women in his police force, or he encourages them to behave differently according to whether they are dealing with Muslims or Jews, men or women, black people or white, members of the left wing or of the right. Many people have lost confidence in the Metropolitan Police because of this partisan and biased approach, which began under Cressida Dick, the previous commissioner. We saw the police act very aggressively towards women at that time, when she was in charge, at a vigil for Sarah Everard, and then go easy on men. We watched the police in London kneel before black people holding protests during the lockdown, and then use their truncheons on white people in Trafalgar Square who were protesting against the lockdown. Under Cressida Dick, we became used to seeing different groups treated differently by the police in London, and this is a tradition which Mark Rowley has continued. One thing which is suspected is that Rowley is very orthodox in his views on ethnicity and race. That is to say, he bends over backward to be easygoing on the victims of structural racism, while at the same time coming down hard on those who enjoy white privilege. We saw this in the way that the police handled the celebration of St George's Day in central London recently. He has now issued an abject apology to the mother of Stephen Lawrence. My own personal view is that the police have perhaps apologised enough over the last 30 years or so for a murder which was carried out by a group of vicious young men. Anybody unfamiliar with the details of the case might be forgiven for thinking, so often have the police apologised for the death of the teenager in 1993, that it was they who murdered Stephen Lawrence. It was not, of course, what happened. They merely muffed up the investigation at first, although they later succeeded in bringing the killers to justice, something often forgotten. But I mean, however awful this murder was, it did take place 31 years ago, and I cannot for the life of me imagine why Mark Rowley has been saying sorry yet again to Doreen Lawrence, the mother of the murdered youth. These ritual abasements by the London police have been a regular event since the Macpherson report, which appeared in 1999 and declared that the Metropolitan Police was institutionally racist. Although this expression had been knocking around since the early 1980s, it was the first time that most people in Britain had heard it, and boy did it catch on quickly. Almost every aspect of British society has since then, at various times, been found to be institutionally racist, from the army to London transport, our museums, and every other public body of which you can think. Why Mark Rowley felt the need to apologise again is something of a mystery, except that it enabled him to mention Doreen Lawrence, which always goes down well with the media, this woman being something of an icon these days. My own feeling is that it is time for the police in this country to forget all that business and look to the future. I say this because although some of their antics are popular with left-wingers and ethnic minorities, they are rapidly losing the trust of ordinary people, that is to say the bulk of the population. It's all well and good to get on well with the BBC, Doreen Lawrence and a few other noteworthy individuals and organisations, but when the man and woman in the street no longer trust you and think that you are prejudiced against them and have no interest in their welfare, then this could easily lead to a serious confrontation in the future. Less politics and more impartial policing would not come amiss.